Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a crazy story, and it's a great continuation to the book that we've the story that we've been telling with Entos Pharmaceuticals, John Lewis, Fusogenics, and this is kind of the next chapter, which is really exciting to have you in here to kind of tell that story. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun.
So I think I'm going to start with a little bit about yourself. You have a very cool story yourself on where you came from, how your passions developed, and then what's led you from being with Deloitte, a massive company, to coming into, helping broker this deal with Entos and Lilly. Let's start. Take us a little bit about your journey to how you got to this position.
Yeah. So it's been fun. So science degree. I worked in labs basically through the summers as a student. Realized that bench work wasn't for me. I loved talking to people, and so ended up. A good friend of mine actually was he had a pharmacy degree, was going into accounting and finance, and so he brought me along to meet with a couple of firms. I ended up deciding that I wanted to go down that same road, so did an after degree in business, accounting, and finance. Joined another global firm, KPMG at the time. Started off in the audit side, and then really sort of found a way to combine sort of the science and the accounting and finance with some deal making. I ended up joining Deloitte and helped with another deal with Lilly, actually, with a company called BioMS. So that was my first deal with Lilly, and in the life sciences space. And it was for a company. So BioMS was developing a phase 3 multiple sclerosis drug,
right?
And it was great. It was at the time the largest biotech licensing deal in Canada. And I fell in love with doing transactions, doing M&A, doing licensing, working in the life sciences space. I had a short stint away from Deloitte. Actually, I went to Tech Edmonton as an executive in residence. Started working with startups. Worked with Entos actually at that time, and then came back to Deloitte as a partner. Took over basically mergers and acquisitions for life sciences and healthcare, and investment banking for Deloitte in Canada, and then ended up supporting Entos on this deal with Lilly. So
and then joining Entos, through and through.
Yeah, so we closed that deal right at the end of 21. And John called me up over the holidays and said, "Hey, we want to offer you a position.
Right.
We're moving into growth mode for the company. Company was about 10 people at the time, and there was an opportunity to basically support the growth of the company. And so it was just very exciting. The technology was amazing. The deal with Lilly is fantastic. And lots more opportunities to do more. And so I decided to take the jump.
Your experience is unbelievable in the sense of, like, now we're looking at potentially not potentially, it's two of the largest deals, Canadian deals, not just Alberta, not just Edmonton, Canadian deals when it comes to the life sciences industry that you've been a part of, and we could say a significant role in on just structuring what these deals look like, making sure both sides are benefiting properly. But I really we talked a little bit off camera on how these deals are structured. And maybe we'll just talk a little bit about how Entos and the Lilly deal came about, and then how that structure works to make sure both sides are contributing and both sides are winning.
Right. Yeah. So the deal itself is an amazing deal. So and these are the details that were basically in the press release. A $50 million US upfront, basically to recognize the risk of that Entos had taken on, plus the exclusivity rights that Lilly took on for the brain, effectively. So the deal is for central nervous system, peripheral nervous system diseases, and Lilly has exclusive worldwide rights to the Entos technology, Fusogenics technology, for that field.
Right.
Along with that is $400 million in milestones, so development milestone payments per program. And so Lilly has committed to an undisclosed number of programs. for each program that we develop together, there are $400 million in milestones that would be paid for each drug that's developed.
Yeah.
And then royalty rate. So there's a royalty rate, again, that's undisclosed, that's associated with the deal. And so for every dollar of revenue that they generate with any drugs that are developed with the Fusogenics delivery technology, Entos gets a royalty rate on that as well.
Yeah. And the possibilities for these programs that we're talking about, I mean, just with the Fusogenics technology and then the areas that Lilly is looking at and has the potential to look at into the future are seemingly endless.
Right.
Like there's just an infinite number of possibilities with this kind of partnership on what they can go and tackle when it comes to health and life sciences.
Right.
Which is exciting in itself because it just seems like it's just it could be a perpetual growth.
Right. And brain diseases are hard. I mean, if you take a look at Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and ALS and some of these, it's been a bit of a graveyard. Like pharma companies have really been trying hard, spending a lot of money, trying a bunch of different approaches to solving these diseases. And it's been a bit of a graveyard. Like there's just been so many drugs that have been tried, failed. And we're fortunate that they keep trying to develop new drugs for these challenging diseases.
Yeah.
In terms of how this deal came about, we had some great data basically that showed that we could develop, that we could deliver, genetic cargo and genetic medicines to the brain.
Right.
Which opens up this door, this window into this opportunity of being able to solve some of these challenging diseases.
Right.
And taking a different approach, right? Taking a genetic medicine approach to difficult brain diseases. And so it's been really exciting actually.
Yeah.
Lilly's an amazing partner. We've been thrilled actually with the quality of the teams and the quality of the work that they've done, and we're blessed actually to have them as a partner. But it also means that we have only licensed out the brain. We in this deal have kept the intellectual property. We licensed it. It's almost like a concept of leasing.
Yes.
But licensed the technology to Lilly for this particular field. But the real estate, if you were to say, of the rest of the body, so delivering to liver, lung, eye, muscle, spleen, kidney, like there's so many other opportunities that are available.
Yeah.
And so the Lilly deal actually also catapulted, I think, a number of discussions that we had with large pharma, some new interest, some new approaches, thinking about how we might do things. I would say this new approach to vaccines using mRNA is again, another world of how you could use genetic medicines to solve certain diseases. And so there's lots of opportunities for our particular platform to be able to move into.
Well, it really feels like it's a foundation, and it's going to fire, like you said, the brains of other organizations that can bring their medicines to you guys and to Lilly and say, hey, like, we've got this. Can we attach it to that? And it just opens up this whole world. It's a really neat look at how collaboration can work.
Yeah.
Because all these companies can now come to you with their solutions, but that they need that delivery, or they've just got that hurdle they got to get over. They can come and talk to this. So was there any unique hurdles that you found in the business, like the business world of the sciences here in Canada, that you had to overcome? I mean, you mentioned data, which was, you had it. It was kind of tried and tested. So it was kind of we've already done the work. I feel like it was not necessarily an easy sell, but I guess a no-brainer that this has been done. We can do this. We need to connect. Was there any other hurdles that you found that exist in the... You're smiling because I think you got one
so
that you can discuss, I should say.
Yeah, no, and it's actually a broader comment within this space.
Yeah.
And that is, within the life science industry, particularly on the deal side, we joke often that data is one of those things that people always want more of, right? So the issue is large pharma companies, when they're spending large dollars, they want to get comfortable with the risk that they're taking on a technology that may or may not work. And so whatever they can do to get their hands on, and it's entirely appropriate, but whatever they can do to get their hands on more data is important for them to help with managing the risk, right? And so, lots of biotech companies, they'll get a phase 1 trial done, they'll talk to pharma companies, and they'll say, you know what, great, we love it. If you could just do this phase 2 trial, if you're successful, let's talk again. And then they'll do the phase 2, and they'll be like, well, let's do a phase 2B, and if you can, complete that, let's talk again. And so, there's this sort of continual sort of point where you're constantly generating more data, trying to get to that deal. Large pharma companies are trying to balance their sort of risk mitigation, and they know, right? If you complete a phase 1 trial, the cost of a license deal for them is going to be here. If you complete a phase 2 trial and you've de-risked the product further, their cost has also gone up, right? And because you've spent more money and you've shifted the risk calculation. So it's less risky for them, but then they have to pay more for the asset.
Yeah.
And so we're, again, I think with Lilly, very blessed to have a partner who saw the data, felt like the opportunity was right for them at the time, and decided that they wanted to, conclude a deal with us and push forward. Yeah.
Is there anything you see, advice-wise, I guess, for up and coming, that want to get into a realm where they can get their drugs to larger licensing deals and things like that here in Alberta, in Canada as a whole? Do you see any other opportunities that haven't been capitalized yet to get people to the next level, organizations, companies to the next level? Startups specifically, because you're so into the startup world.
Right. I think a couple of things. One, I would say, so a patent is only good for 20 years. And to get through preclinical work and all of those human trials basically takes 12 to 14 years. That's pretty well studied. And so you basically only have 6 years of patented, time to be able to sell the drug with a patented price before, 10, 15 companies, generic companies, basically there with, copies and they're selling their products, right? So, go fast. And then on the deal side, I often come across companies and entrepreneurs who, are afraid to sort of have conversations with pharma. They're afraid to, they don't want to disclose what they have until they get to the point where they feel like, it's good enough. With us, I found that long-term relationships and conversations with large pharma companies and understanding sort of where they are strategically and what they're looking for is a far better approach. We, I would say we're in discussions with a number of pharma companies today. We have asked actually a number of pharma companies basically to say, look, we know you want to see more data. So we're going to generate that data for you. And these are the studies that we plan to do. But we want to understand what you want to see at the end of this for you to do a deal. And so here's our study plan. Give us your feedback on the study plan. We'll incorporate all the feedback from all the pharmas. And then at the end of that, we're going to do the studies, and we're going to create the data that everybody wants to see. And then hopefully at the end of that, everyone is going to make a decision as to, do we do a deal or do we ask them for more data, right? But knowing that, let's call it 10 other pharma companies are looking at the same information, have provided the same feedback. The consulting, the free consulting aspect of, being able to provide the data at the end of the day for what they're looking for is super valuable. And so, I would say that's the other piece of advice. Take the time to, have those conversations with pharma, develop those relationships, understand what they're looking for, what they need in order to pass, their governance reviews for doing a deal, right? What are they looking for strategically that's important to them? And then how do you shape the studies and how do you shape the data and what you're looking for and what you're really testing for in the data to match up with what they need to be able to move forward in the deal.
Gotcha. In your experience, because you're so deeply rooted in the financial part of the world,
Right.
Getting things off the ground to the stage, like, I mean, getting those tests done isn't cheap. We've talked with a number of people at the University of Alberta and whatnot that are trying to get programs off the ground that allows funding to come in so that people can get that data.
Right.
And getting that data, is just not cheap.
Right.
Do you see, because of, like, I mean, you've seen what the end result can be a couple of times now. If someone can survive the gauntlet of getting their drug to be recognized
Right.
and off the ground, and there are some phenomenal ideas out there. Do you see what is the solution to that? Do you see a solution to that on making that process more attainable? Or is it good that it's not attainable to a certain point where it's, that they're forced to do the challenges?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's two aspects of the question there. One I heard is, what about sort of dollars?
Yeah.
And then two, is there a way to make the process more efficient? And
Yeah.
so there's, if maybe I address the second one first. There's lots of discussion around how to make the process more efficient. There have been some recent changes and some recent discussions around, is there a way, potentially to avoid animal testing
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and actually to use computer modeling
interesting.
as sort of a replacement for animal testing. And so, if you know that the human body does this, right, or if you know that animals, based on a whole bunch of data, react this way, if you were to do a in silico testing model
Yeah.
and test your drug within this computer model, is that enough then to be able to support, putting it in people? I mean, obviously, the challenge, the process is this way because, they're trying to protect people, right?
Yep.
So, as much as possible, the regulatory agencies are trying to find a way to manage the risk, right? And there have been drugs in the past where they've done trials, they were not up to snuff, problems occurred later, and then those drugs had to be taken off the market. And I mean, they're trying to minimize that as much as possible. And so, the drug development process is the way that it is because they're trying to manage that risk, which is appropriate.
Right.
But there is, again, lots of discussions around, is there a way to do that, faster? Is there a way to get drugs to market faster, to people faster, while still doing it safely?
Right.
The-
It's a tipping scale. It's
Yeah, it's a balance.
That's tough
It's
to
a balance, for sure.
Yeah. That's wild.
On the money side, I would say, for great innovations, there's money out there.
Yeah.
And so that's another balance, right? At some point, you sort of, we'll call it government grant dollars will get you so far. But at some point, if you want to raise 40, 50, 60, 70, $100 million, you're going to have to go to, private investors. There is a dilution impact to ownership, when you go to an investor. But a lot of investors add a lot of value too, right? So they typically have lots of great relationships with large pharmas. They can support introductions, managing, negotiations.
Yeah.
They have a pretty good view potentially into strategically what large pharma companies are looking for. And so, they can help you get space. They can help you connect with, executives who might be free with, expertise within your specific area to help you grow. And so
A lot more outside monetary. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Experience and like you said, connections and knowledge base is huge.
But that comes with a cost, right? So your ownership is going to be diluted as part of that raise.
Right.
And so finding the right partner, figuring out sort of what the right valuation is, how much you want to be diluted,
Yeah.
what your next, milestones are, is important.
Yeah. Attracting, now that we've seen some really big successes here, specifically in Alberta, we've got some world-class universities. We arguably have world-class talent and connections here now, and we've managed with a lot of these deals to keep all of that talent and those connections here in the province. So when a deal like this hits the wave and everyone finds out, like, whoa, like that came out of Alberta, there's these guys like John Lewis, like Jason with this knowledge base, Is the door being knocked on a lot more? Does that help the door being knocked on a lot more? Are people wanting to bring their business here, their money here, their research here to utilize our talents?
I definitely think so.
Awesome.
So yeah, I mean, and part of I think what we need to do, we need to continue to do a better job of is creating that community, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've opened up an office. Entos has opened up an office in the U.S. in San Diego.
Okay.
We've expanded as well to London, UK.
Yeah.
And if you take a look at San Diego, like along the road where we've opened up our new office and lab there, you've got large pharma companies next to a whole bunch of biotech companies, and there's this community, right, where people get together, they talk about sort of challenges they're having, they talk about successes that they're having, and there's this sort of great community of support. There's some sharing of talent as well, within the group. It's through no fault of their own. Some biotech companies fail. They run a trial, they're not successful, but there's a community there to pick up, the talent from those companies and allow it to continue to grow. We in Alberta, what we need to do is, and we have some amazing success stories in Calgary and Edmonton with diagnostic companies, medical device companies, therapeutic companies. But continue to work on that ecosystem and continue to work on sort of that collaboration, that community amongst the companies is really important.
Yeah.
So
like building our own little like Silicon Valley, but in the biosciences area, right? Like
exactly.
there's every one of these industries has to have a community,
right?
But it's making sure they're tight, not too spread apart, so that they can collaborate easily. And I mean, technology helps with that, but still, it's nice to get that. So for when you talk about, there's a row or a street where it's just like these guys can be like, I got an idea. They go for lunch with somebody and bounce that idea. That's why 90% of great ideas are born. It's just guys shooting the breeze over coffee or whatever, and going, we should take a look at that.
And even I would say the first connection, to Lily was through, a relationship, right, that we had within the community. And so it's just super important to continue to build that.
Absolutely. Right on. Jason, thank you so much for coming in and telling us this story, this success story, a massive success story.
You bet.
I love that it's Alberta. You talk about opening up offices in London and in the States, but you've brought through this deal Alberta to the world, and we hope to see the world come to Alberta now in more droves to recognize the talent.
And really, and John will say this as well, our goal is to build, the best genetic medicines company in the world right here in Alberta. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
right on. Well, I think you guys are crushing it. So great job. And again, thank you for everything you guys have done, and good luck for all the successes. And I hope to have you back on here to hear about the next one.
Sounds good.
Good stuff. Thanks again.
Thank you.